and they asked for whatever reason, like the social, he gave like his Instagram handle.
I think that was the first thing I thought of too. And I'm 50. I thought you meant like, what's your Instagram handle?
Repeat the song. Don't be polite to men who creep you out.
Don't be polite to men who creep you out. Trust your gut. Don't walk alone at night. It's Britney Spears.
I struggle with that because I don't know if I do the best job at it.
If you do the best job you can, it's the best job.
Yeah, we get older every day. Got more wrinkles, that's okay. Yeah, we're laughing when we age. Life is like a comedy stage. And that's why we got laugh lines.
Hey everybody, I'm Kim Holderness.
And I'm Penn Holderness, and welcome to another edition of Laugh Lines. If you're one of those types of people who has to turn down the car radio to see better, this show is for you. And yes, I can see better when the music's not as loud or when people aren't yelling as loud in the back of the car.
Yeah, it helps me focus. And this is just where we are now. This podcast is really meant to celebrate the aging process and celebrate just life as we continue to know it.
And for us, a big part of the aging process is our kids are aging out of the house.
Yeah.
It's happening.
And what I love about this community is I feel like you're aging with us.
Yeah.
Remember we had this agency and we are no longer with them, but we were talking about our age, and we did a video about turning 40 and they said, "Oh, don't talk about that. People don't want to hear about that."
Opposite.
And my response was, so the people on the other end of the internet aren't aging. So I love that this community is aging with us. And I have to say, we have a wider reach than I thought, because you're going to hear on the Laugh Lines today and some advice given from like college students. So there's some youngins out there.
This is all about anyone either going to college or leaving the nest, and their parents and the community around them. Like, what's some advice that you would give?
I have to say, I'm not an easy crier, but I got so emotional because we put this call out on Instagram to email us, call us, send us a message, and we got hundreds and hundreds of responses, and they're just showing up for people they don't know just to help, a kid have a better time. And so it was really touching to me.
Yeah.
It's not easy to parent a child, minimum, and then to make sure they're ready to leave the nest. They don't write enough books about this part. Or maybe they do and I'm too busy to read them.
Well, we do have someone who's written many books on this part who we're going to bring in very, very shortly, Dr. Lisa Damour, who is probably, like, if there's a Mount Rushmore of guests on Laugh Lines, she is on the Mount Rushmore. Before we get to Dr. Lisa, we were talking about how amazed we were by the thousands of comments that we got from this community trying to help us get kids ready for college. There was another email sort of stuck in the middle there that was about a prior show that we did about how do we survive the 90s, all the weird stuff going on in the 90s. And so Ms. Sandifer PE.
We had donkey basketball. A company brought donkeys with special shoes into the gym. The teachers rode them while playing basketball.
So this happened in the 90s.
First of all, what shoes does a donkey wear?
Well, I think it's like a horseshoe. It's not like, they're not like lacing up Converses.
No.
Yeah, no, a horseshoe is a horseshoe. It's the little...
Hold on.
So I did some research on this because I thought this person was lying, to be honest, because I could not imagine it. And I saw a actually recent video. I think that this is still happening in some of our rural areas of America.
Donkey basketball.
People that maybe own donkeys and have easy access to donkeys. I think my understanding is it's sort of just a protective piece between the donkey foot and the floor.
Yeah, it's a horseshoe.
Not for the donkey, but probably to protect the basketball
floor.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds inhumane, but you've seen a horseshoe, right? You toss a horseshoe. That shoe, I don't want to mansplain anything, but that's like a metal thing that you nail into the bottom of a horse's foot.
Hurt them.
Right. So I'm guessing that instead of a metal horseshoe, that's a rubber horseshoe, right?
I read this and I was imagining like a Cabbage Patch doll site, but a bigger shoe that somebody sat there and laced up. I was imagining
every donkey gets a Jordan.
Every donkey in like Converse. I am such an idiot. As always, we love your messages and comments, so make sure to leave us voicemail or send us an email.
Let's get to the main event, shall we? Dr. Lisa Damour is a clinical psychologist, best-selling author, and co-host of the popular podcast, Ask Lisa, the Psychology of Parenting.
It's a great podcast, by the way. You might know her from her many books, Untangled and Under Pressure, where she dives into the emotional lives of teenage girls, and most recently, the emotional lives of teenagers, which is changing the way parents and educators understand adolescent development.
Today, she's going to talk to us about the most important things that we can do as parents to set our kids up to have a successful launch into the real world.
Stay tuned. After our interview with Dr. Lisa, we have some for real talk advice that your kids should hear before leaving the nest. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you for having me. This is my favorite place to be.
Just quickly to let people know, Lisa is essentially a blue anti-anxiety depression pill for us anytime in the form of a calming, wonderful human being. And so every time we talk to her, it comes from a very personal place.
Yeah.
And she finds this wonderful way to not only address us, but also the rest of the world, which is kind of incredible.
So thank you for spending your time with us.
Our friendship and collaboration is one of my favorite things.
Oh, well, okay. We sent you the email. It's like, hey, help us talk about launching kids into the world. And it hits us at a time where I'm like, oh, I'm totally fine. My daughter graduated from high school. I'm totally fine. Totally fine. But then I'm like not sleeping and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. That has nothing to do with it. So help me feel better here. From a developmental perspective, like she's ready. These kids are ready, right?
Well, your kid may be ready.
Right.
Not every kid is ready, but your kid may be ready.
What kind of milestone should teens ideally be reaching before they take the next step of independence, whether that's college or moving out on their own, or what does that look like?
Okay, so one of my favorite superintendents in my area talks about being enrolled, enlisted, or employed, right? That they're going to do something after high school. And I think that what is really key is to uncouple high school graduation, the skills it takes to graduate from high school, with the skills it takes to live independently and move out of your family's home. Those are two different things.
Yes.
And, I do a lot of work around college stuff. And unfortunately, it gets rolled up together sometimes that, well, if you've graduated from high school, you must be ready for college. And that is not always true. So if we just use the college example, but I think you could extend it to anything else, what we're asking is that you're able to take good care of yourself, that you see looking after yourself as your job. Not all kids are there. That's what I would say. If like I had to give the headline of like before they leave your home, do they understand that their care and safety is their responsibility?
Okay. So practically speaking, beyond, academics and that diploma, what sort of practical skills do they need to know how to do for themselves?
A lot of things they can figure out, or frankly, they will YouTube, right? If a kid gets to college and they realize they don't know how to do laundry, they will hop on YouTube and they will teach themselves, or they will show up in the laundry room with a plaintive look on their face and somebody will help. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of just, the kind of the stuff kids need to know how to do. Like, it's great if you can teach them, but if they don't want to hear another word from you about another task or another skill, none of these are life and death. There are, however, things that are life and death, which is, can you count on this kid to go to a party and leave safely? Right? Those are the questions that really weigh on me when I'm helping families decide if it's time for their kid to move out and, like, say, go to college where things, there's a lot of activities and a lot of risks involved. So I would actually put more emphasis on questions of, if your kid finds themselves in a tricky physical interaction, something that started out as fun and intimate and then started to take a turn, does that kid have a plan for how to get out of that so that it doesn't go further than than they want it to? I know I'm going right to part of terrifying fear, but these are the things that really need to be addressed. Laundry, how you
they'll figure it out.
Get your books, they'll figure all that out.
Okay, I'm sorry, one more. I think the theme of our conversations, Lisa, and the conversations Penn and I have been having lately as parents is what's the line? Like we want to be supportive, and then there's over managing. And I think in our parenting, if I had to do it all over again, I think I have over managed, and I have said, oh, but this is how I show love. Like this is how this is what a mom's supposed to do. But I do think, especially for my son, because he's like my cute little baby, I feel like I've done way too much. I know he's nodding because we had an issue this morning.
No, I'm not nodding.
No, because we had an issue this morning. So how much is too much in terms of interference from a parent?
So as a starter, I will just say it's sometimes really fun to do nice things for our kids. Like I don't want to sleep on the pleasure of that. My older daughter used to walk to our high school. She's now a rising college senior, which I cannot believe.
Crazy.
And there were mornings where I was like, want me to drive you? Right. I mean, could she get there? Of course. Right. But it was like fun for me. So I'm not of the mind of like, if they could do it, they should totally do it. Never step in. I think the question starts to become, can they do it? Could they do it with some support and some teaching? Is this something that they're going to need to take over eventually? I think those are the kinds of questions that should be borne in mind as we're thinking about handing things off to kids. I will also say in my training, I worked with a psychoanalyst who took care of toddlers, and she had this model of first you do for, then you do with, then you stand by to admire, and then you hand it off to the kid.
Ooh.
So exactly. So it's not either you do it or I do it, right? A lot of what we're doing is sort of this gradual moving over of handing things off, and it takes time and process. And so I would just say, you should be in that process with a lot of these things, but it's not like one day you're like, all right, buddy, you're on your own, right? You have to teach them things.
And you said for, I want to do it again. With, and then out of the way.
For, with, standing by and cheering them on.
Standing by and cheering,
and then,
okay.
And then they're on their own.
Okay.
So we can think about remember teaching your kids how to tie their shoes, right? First you do it for them, then you take a long time of doing it with them, then you stand by while they're doing it, and you're like, you got it. And then you stop talking about it, right? So you can take that same model to things like making doctor's appointments, right? That maybe, kids are anxious about using phones. They don't make a lot of phone calls. So sometimes they may need you to do it in front of them, and then they, do it with you, and then you stand by while they do it. And then you're like, okay, now you got it.
My favorite, there was a video, I think it circulated on Instagram. The mom had the son, call the dentist to make an appointment for the cleaning. And they asked for whatever reason, asked for the social. And he thought it meant social media. He gave his Instagram handle because he didn't know.
Of course he did.
He didn't know.
Of course he did.
And
I love that.
Yeah. So I could see that happening.
As could I. And when you said social, that actually, I think that was the first thing I thought of too. And I'm 50. I thought you meant what's your Instagram handle?
Because the doctor needs to know that.
Yeah.
To that point. So I did not know my social security number when I went to college because I had never needed to know my social security number before then. And I have such a vivid memory of being sick as a dog and going to the health services and this cranky nurse being like, well, what's your social? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what happened next. Somehow they still took care of me. Somehow I went home and figured out what my social was. Right. So there's a lot of room for your kid just having to figure it out, and they will.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I loved your note about YouTube. I think more and more people are getting through life, a lot of the important parts of life, just by looking it up on YouTube and someone there to help you out. Even Lola helped select her campus based on YouTube videos of people just kind of walking them through a day that you wouldn't normally see from a tour. You did mention there's things that aren't going to be on YouTube. I want to know, maybe for boys and for girls, these are separate answers. As a clinical psychologist, what are the things that pop up to families unexpectedly that they didn't realize that they were going to have to learn or be challenged with?
Okay, so there's a couple things. One is not all kids are good at structuring their days. One thing that's true about high school is it keeps kids super busy. They don't really have to think a lot about where they're going to be and when. It's kind of handed to them. Mm-hmm. And it's a not small transition to suddenly be in class 1 or 2 hours a day, almost max.
Yeah.
And then having the rest of their time. So I think sometimes kids are a little bit at sea about how to create routines and have habits and stick to them. And so when I'm talking to high school seniors, I will often say, you get to create routines now, and you're going to feel a lot better if you have one. And it's going to take you time to figure it out. But don't wake up every day and think like, okay, well, now what do we do? Right? Like have some sense of pattern.
Yeah.
So that's a low grade one. Something that's actually much more challenging and not at all rare is that your kid is fine, but their college roommate is not college ready. That they are living with somebody who either is bombing out academically or out of control socially, or really should never have come to college because they are still in a bad place with, say, depression or an eating disorder or, uncontrolled anxiety. That is not as rare as we would want it to be, and really hard on the kid who's trying to figure out what their role or obligation is to a roommate who is struggling that much.
But it makes sense. I'm just sitting here thinking, as soon as you said it, I'm like picturing this room. It's so small and you get crammed into it and you absolutely feel all of the emotions, whether they're saying them out loud or not, and they can't not affect you, right? And you just said 1 or 2 hours max. So you're probably, unless you're going to the library, you might be spending hours and hours of unscheduled time with this person. And I never thought about it that way until she said it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's unassigned. Like it's just a random assignment.
Yeah. I mean, mine was unassigned. I think that my roommate was like, you're
who was your freshman year?
Scott Saunders, great guy, but he was like, you don't really.
Yeah, you were that kid.
You don't really go to class, see? Yeah,
I was an untethered kid.
But I was very social, and so I just went from room to room and I found where the Sega was, and we didn't have one in our room. So anyway,
basically,
you just pray not to get the random pen holder.
Don't get me.
It's interesting. I take care of a bunch of senior classes. I get to do virtual meetings with senior classes and high schoolers and hear from them about what their concerns are. And I'm hearing different things these days than I used to. So I'm hearing more kids worrying about like how they're going to eat, the foods that they're used to, that's something that is an anxiety that I haven't heard in the past. I think in many ways we eat better than we used to. I also think there may be more unhealthy concerns about food than maybe we used to have. So I'm hearing that. I am hearing, this is alarming to me, and I've already gestured to it, more concerns about like, how do I not get sexually assaulted? I think that there has been like, we've really hammered these kids about this danger. And I think, it's important to talk about. And there's a part that also sort of breaks my heart that this is top of mind of how do I, manage college, is how do I prevent this? So those are the kinds of things kids are thinking about right now.
I will say we did a call out on our Instagram of, what advice would you give a kid about to leave the nest, go to college, get a job, something like that? And I would say we probably got, 500 messages, which was incredible. I would say 400 of them were for girls, cover your drink, never go to a party alone. If you go with somebody, you leave with something. It was all personal safety stuff, which is so important, but you could tell. And a lot of them had not a lot, but several had examples of when things kind of went wrong and a reason for that fear. So that just was nothing that we ever thought about. And it makes me sad they need to, but it makes me sad. Yeah.
I mean, the hope is that these things will happen less now because we're doing it more now than we used to.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
You're allowed to. It's your podcast.
Lisa, you are our anxiety guru. And for those of you who don't know, she was sort of one of the voices behind the anxiety that existed in this amazing movie called Inside Out 2. She was a consultant in that movie. And if you watch that movie, you know that they showed anxiety in this wonderful new way where it was kind of a little crazy and flighty and out there, but also at some point useful. True or false? Every child, whether they have anxiety disorder or not, is going to be coping with anxiety when they leave for college.
I think true.
Yeah.
Because anxiety is a natural emotion that alerts us to threats. So not to hammer this too much, but like if you're at a party and it feels out of control, anxiety is a good reaction, right? And your anxiety is going to be the thing that says, you know what, I should probably leave, right? So there's value in anxiety. The other thing kids are going to be feeling is stress. And stress is enormous because change equals stress. So when I think with young people about getting ready to leave home wherever they're going, I will say stress is a done deal because so much is changing. and you may be going to the college of your dreams, the job of your dreams. The fact that you're stressed is not a problem. It's an inevitability. And really kind of preparing young people for the idea that it's just so stressful to adapt to all new things so that they don't get stressed about being stressed.
We had a chit chat and we were talking about graduating and going to college. And I had said to you, yeah, I haven't really like gotten super emotional yet. I haven't really done the breakdown and tears yet. I haven't, but I'm waiting. I'm waiting for it.
I tried to get her.
He tried to get me to cry one time. And
it didn't work.
And you said to me, you may be okay.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So like, I'm not a freak, right? I'm very excited for her. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this was something, when I shared that with you, I was sort of working off of my experience of sending my older daughter to college. And I kept having this interaction that felt a little strange to me where people were like, are you okay?
Are you okay?
And I was like, yeah. And then I kept thinking like, what's wrong with me? Like, don't I love my kid or something? And the fact of the matter was, I really was okay. And in retrospect, I understood it better. So we dropped her off in college and we're driving back across the Pennsylvania Turnpike from dropping her off in college. And I actually was elated. And what it was is I was saying to my husband, I was like, we just dropped a college-ready kid at college. Like, that is such an achievement. Like, we're like high-fiving on the turnpike. Yeah. And I will tell you, this doesn't always happen, right? There are a lot of kids where the parents have done everything that they were supposed to do and the kid's not college ready. Or there are things where it's gone badly off the rails and the kid, just isn't college ready. And so I was like, wait a minute, this has been what we've been all organized toward and working toward all this time. It just came off like, this is great. This is great. So I think that I want to voice that because I feel like that part of the story doesn't get told enough. Okay, that said, you do miss them.
Yeah, I already miss her. She's still here.
Yeah, they're home and you miss them and you just, you miss like the casual interactions. And my experience, so just so you're ready if this happens to you, even in the getting ready for her to go, I was fine as long as there was still an item on the to-do list. As long as there was something for us to focus on about like, oh, but we also have to do this and have you gotten that? Where I really broke down in tears for the first time was we had gone out to dinner with my in-laws who live nearby. And it was like, saying goodbye to her at dinner. And we came home and there was nothing left to do but to say goodnight to her in her bed. The last time she was going to bed in her room and I was like, whoosh, I like lost it at that point.
I think
you struck a nerve here. This is the charades for you got it.
Lisa, stop knowing me so well. So my therapist was like, maybe all of the to-do lists you've created is your way of processing. I'm like, but I don't think that's an unhealthy way to process. But there's only a few X's on the Google Doc right now. But when they're all X'd out,
So, very shortly after Lola even got into college and decided where she was going to go, she had a spreadsheet for Parents Weekend. I
booked the Parents Weekend. I booked the move-in weekend. I booked,
like verbos and like all that stuff. And so that is striking a chord over here. And I think it's a beautiful sentiment too, because your way of coping is like looking after, but I think much deeper than that. You're looking after your child. You are like, this is what in a lot of ways you were born to do.
I struggle with that because I don't know if I do the best job at it. So I don't know
if you do the best job you can, it's the best job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to our marriage, Lisa.
I love it. I love it.
We're processing. A kid being ready is different than a parent being ready. We do need to transition our roles, right? How do you do that? From going from like parent to more like coach? Like what's the relationship supposed to trend to?
This takes time to work out, right? This is it's tricky and it's complicated because they come home and they have a different sense of what the rules should be. In my family, we don't let tech go in bedrooms overnight. Actually, ideally never, but certainly not overnight. And then, now my daughter, she comes home, she takes her phone in her room when she's home. Like she's got it in her room at college. Like, and I have not said, nope, never mind when you're under our roof. I mean, like, so there are all of these places where parenting, you're making judgment calls, about how late can they stay out once they come home from college? And do they really have to let you know where they are? I mean, like, it's a negotiation every step of the way and tricky. What I will say though, in terms of the coaching and the handing off and the supporting, the best thing that has ever happened to sending a kid to college is the arrival of texting. Texting is the perfect way to interact with a college kid. Do you remember we had to like go find a phone, Sunday call?
Yes.
Right. And it was like, sometimes it was hit you at the right time when you wanted it. Often I think sometimes it feels like an obligation or too long or just not
the right time.
Well suited. Not the right time. Texting, these are these quick, light touch interactions, that it's so rapid. Like you can be much more present without being a hovering annoyance. So I would say, it's something that's getting sorted out bit by bit, around questions like, drinking or going out or staying up. But in the day-to-day with your kid out of the house, texting opens up a phenomenal channel for being available without being very intrusive.
Okay. And it feels safer sometimes to text something.
Yes.
Than to say it out loud.
To get on the phone. Exactly. And some, and sometimes it's just like so quick, like what's my social security number, right? Like, or, like that kind of thing. Like we couldn't do that in the same way. So it's really easier. I will also say texting, especially in the first year of college, and I want to come back to this because the first year of college with kids is different from subsequent years. It's a good way to have a little quick touch of like, I'm thinking of you, I miss you, but it's non-intrusive. So like when I hadn't heard from my daughter for a while, I would take a picture of her little sister and be like, look at this cute outfit she's wearing. And it was just enough to be like, hey, hi.
Yeah, we're still here.
We're still here. And then she could be like, adorable. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And we move on with our day.
Okay. So if you had to, as we wrap up here, the one thing or the big thing you want the kids to know, and what's the thing you wish you knew before launching a kid?
Let me start with the wish you knew.
Okay.
So back to the first year of college, I had this experience, and I've heard a lot of families have this experience, that it's such a big identity shift for the kid to become a college student, living separately and on their own, if that's their college arrangement, that they, I guess we would say they almost overcorrect. They are more aloof, more distant, more remote when they come home even. That establishing that independence causes them to really need to flex that independence muscle everywhere all the time. After the first year, after that is fully established, like they have managed a year of college on their own, my experience as a parent, and I've heard from lots of other parents, they warm up again.
Okay.
They can kind of come back into the family in a new way, but it's helpful, I think, to have that long view, because if you're like, whoa, like you were living under our roof, in the bosom of the family, and now like, you treat us like, like we're annoying you all the time. Is this the new relationship? No, it's a temporary establishment of see how independent I am.
Okay.
And once established, I think there's often a real warming up again. So I wish I had known that, because it's a little jarring at the first.
Yeah, that's good advice.
In terms of for the kid, what I would say is, number one, it's going to be stressful. Done deal. Get ready for it. Number two, and I will be interested, like we should talk in late August to see how this unfolds.
Great idea.
Your parents are not trying to annoy you to death on the way out of the house. Okay, so here was the scene in my house.
I can't wait to hear what happened in the Damour household. By the way,
all summer. Like there actually are a great number of things you have to talk about or deal with, like just logistical, technical things. Okay, so it's summer before your kids headed to college, if they are. And you have this giant, fabulous spreadsheet of all the stuff that actually legit has to happen. Your kid is trying to spend every minute with their friends.
Yes. Sure.
They are busy. Okay, so I would almost like wait in the kitchen like a lion in the jungle waiting for my kid to come
behind a plant.
Ellen, can we? And she'd be like, you're driving me crazy. And so what I like sometimes I stumble into something useful. I was like, hey, when can we have 20 minutes for me to run down several things? Can I, basically I was like, can I get on your calendar?
Get a calendar invite.
Yeah.
And you know what? She was like, fair. Like, and it was just the trying to attack her as she was already half out the door. It just kept happening and it was ugly. So I guess what I would say to the kids is your parents are not trying to bug you. These are legit things. Find time and do it in a structured way so doesn't feel like a sneak attack every time.
Lola has already told us I can give her one thing a day. Because we did put this call out and we got so many really useful messages. I'm going to write them up in a blog post.
This is so true. She'll start running away if we start getting to this.
Yeah, so some of them are safety related, but some of them are just you should have for frat party shoes.
Shower sandals.
Well, everybody knows shoes. Yeah. But certain shoes that you don't mind getting dirty at frat parties. I'm like, did you know? She's like, Mom, I've heard about that. Okay. And then I'll say one more. She's like, that was the one thing. I'm like, oh, that can't be the one thing. That's not good enough to be the one thing. So and she'll start backing away. And she's like, see you tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, on the very pragmatic side of things, you should get renter's insurance for your kids' stuff.
Yep, good.
You should deal with medical power of attorney questions.
Oh, yeah.
Because if your kid is over 18 and, say they have an accident at school.
They don't have to tell you.
No, legally they can't.
The doctors can't tell you.
No, you can't. I mean, if you call the hospital and you're like, hi, they're like, we can't.
So do I have to call an attorney? What do you do for that?
I think we did it online.
Yeah.
We found a form.
There has to be a form online. Yeah.
And I think we had to go get it notarized.
I always love talking to you.
That's how every interview ends with you. You always you exhale after you talk to Dr. Damour.
You know why? Because she has this very overarching, you have this way of saying it's going to be okay. If their laundry gets moldy because they forget to put it in the dryer for 3 days, it's fine.
It's fine.
They have some moldy clothes. It's fine. But I would probably instinctively stress about them smelling, but it's fine. Yeah.
Dr. Lisa, tell us what you're working on. Tell us what you're excited about, what we can help promote.
Oh, you are so lovely. I really am trying to just give away as much help to families as I possibly can. So I have a few mechanisms for that. One is our podcast, Ask Lisa, The Psychology of Parenting, which you guys were recently wonderful guests on. Another is my weekly newsletter, which is free. You can sign up on my website. I spend so much time each week trying to really bullet point key ideas, pivoting off of the previous week's podcast, just nuggets for parents. Another is my AI-powered librarian on my website named Rosalie, where I took all 3 of my book manuscripts, all of my newsletters, all the pieces I wrote for the Times, nearly 100 New York Times pieces, every podcast transcript, dumped it into a gated environment that Rosalie uses to answer questions based on my work. So at 2 a.m., if you're like, how do I talk to my kid about fentanyl, which we haven't talked about, Rosalie will give you answers and also direct you to, here's the podcast where we talked about it, here's the article, whatever. So that's another resource that I want families to know about.
We remember when Rosalie was born. This was a year or so ago. I've been meaning to ask how Rosalie's doing. Has she matured,
she
grown?
Awesome.
Are you noticing a growth in Rosalie from when you first started to now?
So what happens is every Monday I go in and I find all the questions she couldn't answer. There are fewer and fewer of them. And then any that really, she should be able to answer, but she doesn't have an answer for, I work with her on an answer and that gets put into the system. So she's gotten smarter all the time. And it's just, I think AI is scary. But I also think, AI is scary if it's searching the whole darn internet and you don't know the quality of what it's producing.
This is just you.
Yeah.
I have a pretty, I've written a lot, and I've made a lot of content. And so it really, what I do is very well suited to a bot that looks at my work only.
Backing up real quick before we let you go, we did get a lot of, people concerned about fentanyl. One parent even said fentanyl has really ruined drugs. Experimentation used to be fun thing to do in college.
Used to be awesome, guys.
Yeah.
You used to have a little margin for error.
Yeah.
And now you really don't.
Yeah. So what are you telling your kids? What should we be telling our kids about fentanyl?
So here is, here's what you should tell them. And here's what I did before sending my own kid to college. So the thing we should tell them is basically you have no margin for error, that fentanyl can show up anywhere. And the other, in any sort of drug that is, made available, through illegal channels, it is also showing up I think, I don't know the percentages, but not rarely, probably more often, in pills that kids are ordering online that they think are real pills. And it can be things like they forgot their ADHD medication, and so they didn't think to fill it, so they order something online, and then what they get is tainted. Or, like their back hurts, and so they order something. So basically, I would say, drugs are terrifying, and you want to be, enormously careful and steer clear. But also, only pills you should take are the ones that you have bought at CVS or that you got from the pharmacy yourself. Like, never, ever, ever touch a pill that didn't come through a reliable channel. So that's what I would say. Then, at the time where my daughter went to college, Ohio was giving away Narcan, and it may still be. And we had to watch a video online where, it shows like how you use Narcan, when you use Narcan.
That's the antidote to fentanyl, right? That's, or the thing that
it's an antidote. It actually can and does interfere with an overdose.
Okay.
And it's the only thing that lets me sleep at night is the availability of Narcan. And so, and then we got, then Ohio sent us Narcan, and I sent her to college with it. And I was like, you need to keep this with you, and everybody needs to know you have it with you.
Yeah.
And so I would say, and I know a lot of families and friends of mine who are physicians who are, you can get it usually, I think, at pharmacies. I mean, it's increasingly accessible. It is a life-saving solution. Yeah. And so that is something I think I would definitely do before sending a kid to college.
Okay, next one. And parents are uncomfortable talking about this, sex and having protected sex. I know I even have friends who have said like, oh, it's so uncomfortable to talk about. I know we have to have some sort of talk before she leaves, but guys, that you have to have the conversation. What are you advising kids know about protection and sex going into leaving the nest?
I think, hopefully it's not the first time you're talking about this,
right.
But it may be, right? I mean, they're not necessarily asking these questions or wanting to have these conversations. We're not always in the mood to bring them up. But suddenly, I think with college approaching, we're like, oh no, we still have to talk about these things. So first of all, I would say, try not to do a sneak attack. That will not go well. I think if you have not really broached this or need to revisit it again, I think you should say, look, there's a couple things I want to touch base with you about before you go to college. Like, when do you have 5 minutes? And then you get there 5 minutes and you say, I promise this will not go on for more than 5 minutes. I will respect your time. You might go on a walk. You might be in the car. And then I think you can say, look, you will decide when you're ready for intercourse. You will decide, how the nature of the relationship you want to have around that. Here's our values as a family. What I will tell you is that when we tell kids our values, they roll their eyes and are also more likely to stick with those values. So you might say, look, in our family, intercourse happens in the context of marriage or ongoing relationship, or at least, somebody bought you dinner. I mean, like, whatever your values are, they will.
But not exclusively. If you buy someone dinner, does that happen?
Yeah. Not necessarily.
Right, yeah.
You don't have to put out every time they buy you a cheeseburger.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
okay, anytime.
But then you just say, look, it should be a wonderful thing. It should be something that you can enjoy. And part of how you're going to be able to enjoy it is if you're not scared about something going wrong. Do you feel like you have the information you need to, if it's heterosexual intercourse, to prevent a pregnancy? Do you feel like you have the information you need to make sure that an STD doesn't get transmitted? I think that asking those questions. One thing that's interesting is with long-acting injectable, under the skin birth control being so much more common, we're seeing much higher rates of STDs because kids aren't using condoms.
Yep.
Oh.
And so it's also, I think, important to be like, hey, belt and suspenders, if you're,
Yeah, both.
That you're going to, if you're having sex with a guy, like, you're going to need a condom, whatever else is happening.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Belt and suspenders. You heard that, Penn?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, belt and suspenders. I'm trying to think what else. What other practical stuff that's not exactly.
I think the drinking piece. I think you can say to a kid, you can go to parties and not drink. You can go to parties and not get drunk. You can. I will say I'm someone. Actually, alcohol and my body have never been friends. Like, it just has never worked well. Like, I've never felt good with alcohol. So, I tell my kids, I will tell anyone who listens, I went to parties in college. I held a beer periodically I would go dump it in the bathroom and come back for another beer because people find it uncomfortable if you're not drinking, and they are. So I would just deal with it that way. There are ways to be in social environments and not be heavily engaged with alcohol.
Yeah. And I hope that more kids are aware of that now.
It seems to me like we've been around like proms and parties, and at least when I've been around, they've been way more under control than my friends were.
Yeah.
So far. And there is like a more sober, curious generation that is coming up behind us. And I think it's like more socially acceptable if someone's like standing there and not holding a drink.
The research confirms what this is actually the best behaved generation on record. They don't do drugs like we did. They drink less than we did. They're having way less sex than we did. This is all, as someone who has dealt with, very, very bad outcomes from these things, I think this is fantastic news.
Yeah.
Some people, and it's not wrong, like some of it is, they're also much more socially anxious, pandemic or otherwise. And so they're not doing all of these things in part because they're,
not out
less,
there.
Less sort of, novelty seeking, risk taking than we were.
Yeah. I love that I could phone a friend and just get Dr. Lisa on the phone. Okay, we've already asked. And where can people find you? What's your website? What's the best way for people to find you?
drlisadamour.com has everything. So there's a newsletter sign up. You'll see where you can ask Rosalie questions. You'll see where you can find our podcast on YouTube and all of the platforms where you listen. And, I really, I know how hard it is to raise kids, and I've done this a really long time. I don't have answers to everything, but I've seen a lot. So if I can help, save people some trouble, I really hope that they'll make good use of those resources.
I love Dr. Lisa.
I know you do. She definitely hit the nail on the head in that middle part.
I know.
When she was talking about the to-do list.
No, yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. I almost started crying when she was talking about the to-do list because I'm thinking about that, but it's fine. Dr. Lisa had some really good emotional and practical advice, as she always does. But we did go to Instagram, Penn, and we asked people to email, call, send a message with, before you leave the nest, like what are the things that a kid should know? And there were so many.
Yeah.
That we're going to be writing a separate blog post because as a parent, I wrote down it all. Everything was so great and it was so touching that you guys cared enough to send all this stuff in. But I have separated sort of a best of, and I have it in 3 different categories. The first is get over it and have the tough conversation. So there are some things that are going to be a little awkward.
That's section 1.
Get
over yourself is section 1. Yep.
Get over yourself and have the tough conversation. Section 2 are just some basic life skills that I would say more or less as humans you need to know, not just somebody going into the world. And then 3, how to handle academic, you're going to college to be a student. So it should be the first thing we're talking about. But we had actual professors and university staff write in. And those emails I forwarded straight to Lola, and I hope she read them because they were really good.
Getting back to the part we were speaking of earlier, where Lola sometimes feels like she can get one a day.
One a day.
Okay.
I'm hitting her with a fire hose.
So if you want to, over the course of the summer, maybe just hit pause after each one of these and then work your way through it.
Or send it to your kid and be like, oh, these people are so annoying, but maybe you might get something from it.
So just spam them.
Spam them.
Okay.
Number 1, Kim LeBlanc. You're going to hear from her a few times here. She gives her kids several rules, but the number 1 rule she gives them is pretty memorable. It says, stay with your pants. So she explains that it started as a funny way to encourage them to keep track of their things when they were younger. But now, as they're becoming teens, it's a way to encourage them to keep their pants on. So stay with your pants.
From a college senior named Stephanie, forgive me while I look at my non-iPad clipboard. Basically, I encourage anyone going away to college to be familiar with the concept of medical amnesty in their state or on their campus. I think it's important for all college students to know that they should always call for help in any emergency situations, whether specifically related to alcohol or substance abuse, or simply a different medical emergency that occurred while they were under the influence, without fear that they will get in legal or university-based trouble for participating in underage drinking or substance use. look, she touches on a lot of things, but maybe the most important thing is like the fear of retribution.
So I had never heard of medical amnesty before. Yeah. And okay, Sam is shaking her head that she hadn't either. So I looked it up, and in our state, the universities, you are, if you call for help because you or somebody has overdosed or and you're underage, drinking,
you have amnesty.
You're not going to get in trouble for it. They just want you to call for help. And to me, that's such great advice. So I love that. This comes from a mom from Wake Forest. She says her best advice: make sure all the roommates have Narcan. It will not hurt anyone if it's not the solution, but it will save a life if it is. So we heard that from Dr. Lisa. It's definitely going in add to cart. And I think I'll just make sure she has a lot of it. That's a good point. Like it's not going to hurt you, but it could save your life.
We've got one from an OBGYN named Kristen. It says, I've been very frank with my boys about sex and everything that comes with responsible sex. A box of condoms is required on the pack list. A lot of kids have never had freedom like this in the first few months of college, and some campuses have a serious hookup culture. Amen. Like condoms, just and again, suspenders and belt.
Yeah, and like what Dr. Lisa said, that's so true. There's so many other options for birth control, but that's not
IUDs, pills.
There's an arm thing.
None of those things keep you from getting herpes.
Right.
Yeah.
Joanna says, if you're having sex, get STD tested once a year, even if you don't have symptoms. If you get an STD, use the anonymous STD text app to inform anyone you've been with if you're not comfortable telling them yourself. So there's an app where you can tell people like, hey, you were with somebody and they have.
It doesn't tell you which person?
It doesn't tell you which person. Which obviously we're not in this world where we're doing this. But.
Yeah. So you're walking around and you get a text from stdapp.com saying, hey, someone that you were with
has gonorrhea. Do people still get gonorrhea? I don't even know. I guess, right?
Why are you asking Sam? Okay. Alicia, right. When it comes to drinking, pace yourself. Drink and then have water. Want another drink? Okay, then have water. Eat before you go out. Oh, I'm not hungry. I'll have something later. I don't have time is a recipe for disaster. Eat before you go to the parties. I do something called zebra striping.
Okay, tell us.
When I go out, I'll you might see me at like on a really big night, I'll have 4 beers. 2 of those will be non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
I'll do 1 beer, then a non-alcoholic, then a beer, then a non-alcoholic, which is basically water.
Right.
So that's like another example of it. But yeah, water is huge.
Yeah.
And hugely important. And people forget to drink it when they're.
And as a parent, this is why we called this section Get Over Yourself.
Yep.
Because I don't want to teach my daughter how to drink.
To that point, I think maybe we'll end this segment with a reminder that what we did was way worse.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Penn. My name is Tracy. I'm calling from Northwest Ohio. And I wanted to tell you took me down memory lane when you talked about the Borg at the end of the show, when you started talking about the lined trash cans when you were in college, Kim. Can I just tell you, prior to that, we did not line the trash cans. I'm not even sure they were brand new. And we made something called Hairy Buffalo. And in Hairy Buffalo, you sliced up all sorts of fruits, put them in the bottom of the trash can.
Good.
Then you covered them with Everclear for a duration of time, say 24 to 48 hours. And then you filled the rest of the trash can up with Hawaiian Punch and Sprite or 7-Up. Trust me when I say the fruit salad was way more dangerous than the drinks. So thanks for the trip down memory lane. And thank you for your podcast. I really enjoy it every week.
Okay, first of all, what got my stomach to kind of churn was she wasn't even sure if it was a new trash can.
Right. Oh, how about this? Not only that, they let it sit for 24 hours. It's just a trash can in the middle of a frat house. What do you think people are going to be throwing in it for the next 24 hours?
So keep this in perspective as we're talking to our kids about adding water in between their drinks. Again, we have so many messages about covering your drinks, only taking a drink that's, been handed to you that was closed. So we used to drink out of garbage cans. So just let that sit in.
Should we move on to the life advice, Kim? You did a great job organizing these, by the way.
Yes.
I want to give you a little golf clap.
Thank you. As Dr. Lisa said, not knowing how to do laundry, it's fine. We all learn, but let's go back to the laugh line.
Laugh Line is the part of the show where everyone will find. Laugh Line. You call us up and you tell us what's on your mind.
And this might seem like an obvious piece of advice for kids that you are sending to college. But if you are sending kids to college whose laundry you have always done, you might want to remind them not to put clothes away wet. My son thought that just because the dryer buzzed meant that the clothes were done, and that meant he could put them back in his drawers, only to figure out that that's how you get moldy, smelly clothes.
I feel like my heart just I can see this happening to my son. I can see him saying, well, Mom, it buzzed. And our dryer does that. It doesn't dry it all the way unless you have it on a certain setting.
I've never had a dryer that finished it in one setting.
I love this one. Learn the names of campus janitorial and dining hall staff and call them by name when thanking them for all they do, and say those thank yous often. I bet that also makes your kids feel good. Not only the people who are working there. I bet it makes your kids feel good that they're making a connection.
I think in general, life skills, your dad was big on that.
He was awesome.
Yeah. Anytime we were anywhere, he'd go back, thank people. At our wedding, the toast was the first thing we did was applaud the people who were serving the meals. Yeah. I think that's so important. Daslin wrote, I love that. I was given the mind-blowing tip when I was well into my 20s, especially pertinent to girls. If you don't like the vibe of where you're at, you can just leave. It's not rude. You don't have to stay. You don't need to be polite. This is what I told Lola yesterday. This was the one piece of advice I gave her yesterday.
This was yesterday's?
Yeah, she's like, I got it. And then I was started to tell her something more. She's like,
What?
I don't like the vibe. I'm leaving.
Well done, Lola.
I know.
That's good. Okay, what about Laura Powers? You can always change your mind, change your major, change your friends, environment, etc. This will be one of the few periods of your life that you get to make decisions solely for yourself. I've always believed this. College is where you can construct your own world, and it's the best part about it. Put yourself, your happiness, your success first, and you'll lead yourself to your most beautiful and authentic life.
I love that.
Yeah. She also says, repeat the song, don't be polite to men who creep you out. Trust your gut. Do not walk alone at night.
Repeat the song, don't be polite to men who creep you out.
Don't be polite to men who creep you out.
Yeah, if there's not a song, there needs to be one. Penn?
Don't be polite to men who creep you out. Trust your gut. Don't walk alone at night. It's Britney Spears.
Do it again. That's a bop.
Don't be polite to men who creep you out. Trust your gut. Don't walk alone at night. I am stronger than yesterday. That's what that was.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like we should make that into a video. Yeah. Don't be polite to men who creep you out. Done. This one was great.
Yes.
Okay. A. Wright wrote, get her a fracket, AKA a frat jacket.
It's a great portmanteau.
A cheap zip-up hoodie that she won't care about if she leaves at a party or gets snagged in a bush on a drunken walk back home.
That's fine. Hey, if you're going to get snagged in a drunken bush on a walk back home, make sure you're wearing a fracket.
Also, frat shoes, old gross sneakers that will become older and grosser from going to frat parties. This is a really good one. Have the numbers for campus police or any on-campus number for mental health /crisis programming into the student's phone. She may not need it, but she might be able to help someone who does. Amen. Yeah, I have to say, I went to my senior year. I was having a rough time. I went to on-campus therapy. It was really good. She gave me advice that I still kind of roll around in my head.
Tell people who are listening, was it tough making that step to walk into that building?
It was, because I think it was more stigmatized then.
Right.
Maybe I was the only person I knew that was going to therapy. I was sort of embarrassed to sign in. But I did it and I went, that's when my parents were getting a divorce, but again, very like I am right now. I'm like, it's fine. No, they're going to be happy. They're going to be like, I'm like, no, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with me. But I created different problems in my life. And she gave me great advice. It was super good and it was free. So 10 out of 10. One of the very first emails we got when we made this call out was from Adrienne Trier-Bienick. She's a professor in Florida. And we will put a lot of this in the blog post. I'm going to give you highlights. Mm-hmm. Number one, read the syllabus and do what it says. We spend a crazy amount of time preparing these, and it's beyond frustrating when students obviously don't read them and do the opposite of what the course guidelines are. I asked Lola, I'm like, do your high school teachers, did they give you a syllabus? And no.
No, they don't. I don't think syllabi show up until
right. So she
college.
Didn't know what that was. So that was a good nugget to hear. She's also saying go to office hours. That is her, high schools now have the office hours, but she's saying introduce yourself, talk about what interests you, look up the professor's resume who's teaching you and ask them questions about their work.
So this is a teacher saying butter up the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or just get curious and about their work. And I think, and she also says she loves the opportunity to get to know her students better. So I think
it's never going to hurt.
I don't think a professor or a teacher goes into this business not caring about students. So it makes sense that, use those office hours. I love this. Take at least one class in something you don't know about. I didn't do any of that. No, that's not true. I took a golf class.
I think I exclusively took classes and stuff I didn't know about. I feel like everything was like, I have no idea what this is.
You're right.
That sounds good.
The next one, you don't have to be the loudest in the class. Thoughtful comments are always appreciated. And if you're quiet, please consider that your superpower. Find at least one area to contribute to a discussion, but know that we can tell the difference between somebody participating just to talk and someone thinking through a response. And this last one, it sounds trite, but you're here to get an education. Go to events that are new, read books, try out for student groups, learn from people whom you would never have interacted with outside of school. Employers still care a bit about people who can think their way through a problem and who are genuinely curious. I think that's great advice. Like you're there. We're doing a lot of, don't get too drunk at parties, but when it comes down to it, you're there to learn. Yeah. So get curious.
It is time for #not sponsored, one of our favorite segments where we talk about a product that we love and we are being paid in absolutely no way for it, unless you want to and you feel like maybe this would be a good brand deal. But for now, it's just stuff that we really like. Unless you really want to come call our agent and see what they're thinking about, give us a little bit of money. Anyway, so here's Kim with #not sponsored.
Wouldn't it be funny if a brand said, you know what? It would be not sponsored by...
investors? What you got, Kim?
Okay. This was recommended by so many people, and it's a packing bag. Oh. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it, but I'm going to do my best to describe it for those listening.
A packing bag.
Okay. So when you're moving in, and I have to say, I bought 6 of these off of Amazon.
Okay.
And I have used these already.
Oh, good.
So it's basically...
it's a bag.
Well, okay. Let me describe it.
Okay.
It is the material of like an IKEA shopping bag. So it's a heavy duty plastic, but it is a big rectangle thing with a zip, and it zips.
Yep.
Right.
Looks kind of like a miniature body bag.
It looks like a miniature body bag, and it has handles.
Oh, okay.
This one actually has a place where you can label on the side, and I've lost the label thing, but it was recommended. It is just instead of boxes, because boxes aren't like stacking them is kind of hard, and these can provide more space.
So is this heavy duty enough to hold stuff that boxes hold?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and it has handles. So I've been, we went on a beach trip. I packed 2 of these just because, just like the stuff is just not, it doesn't pack in a suitcase.
Right.
So all those things.
It's a duffel bag.
Oh yeah. It's like a plastic duffel bag.
It's a duffel bag made of something different.
But it was told to me, buy them now because apparently they sell out. But I find that hard to believe that like the world would sell out of these.
Well, if it's as strong as it looks, because it's got like a burlappy, like with a shiny burlap look to it. And I'm guessing it's cheaper than buying a duffel bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
6-pack for $29.99.
Yes.
So we're looking at
wonderful.
We're looking
colors.
at $5 a bag.
Right. And
Okay.
I will say they're very reusable. I've used them a lot. And
For college move-in.
for college move-in, yes, but just for general
No,
life.
bro, I'm going to start just taking this. Like if I want to go to the, like the beach and can you put this on an airplane? No,
Yes.
you'd
No,
have
no,
to
no.
check it, right?
You'd have to check it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but people said because there's a lot of people who have to fly to move in,
Yeah.
that they just pack these and you can check them.
Okay. So before we go, I have on this list of things to do for the show and I'm terrified. Play Dukes of Hazzard voicemail.
I love watching Laugh Lines. Y'all are my favorite YouTubers. I have a question. What was your first car and what was the craziest clean thing you did with it? Mine was a little blue Geo Metro that I used to commute to college. And I used to jump over the railroad tracks in my neighborhood, Dukes of Hazzard style, at 40 plus miles an hour on a near daily basis. One day when I was on the interstate driving to class, the engine literally fell out of my baby. Damn, I miss that car so much. Okay, thanks y'all. Bye.
They don't make the Geo Metro anymore.
They don't make most cars anymore, but yeah.
Okay, what was your first car?
A Mazda 323.
Okay.
Manual transmission. That's how I know how to drive a stick shift because my first car was a stick. My dad was like, you got to learn how to drive a stick. There was a road on the way to downtown Durham where the road next to it got paved in like a circle, but it got paved a little too high. So if you stayed on the left side of the road, you could get air if you went fast enough. So I would jump it like a ramp over those things.
And then what happened?
I would land on the other side. I know, like never any badness with that. It was lovely. In my car, I think the Mazda 323 weighed about 7 pounds.
Right.
So you didn't have to go very fast to get air.
Yeah, I think there was very little talk about like safety. Like
No.
when we were buying Lola's car, I was looking for like side impact airbags and all these things. We just didn't.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, look, when you get your first car, that is your first taste of real freedom. And so you're going to do some stupid crap.
I had a 1989 Pontiac Grand Am.
Did you?
Yes. So when I got it, it was
Okay.
5 years old, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 5 or 6 years old.
Those things had some giddy up.
Not this one.
Okay.
It didn't. It had the motor of a golf cart, so
Okay.
it didn't go very fast.
I must be thinking of a different car. I thought a Grand Am could.
Maybe it could, but maybe this particular car. So it didn't go particularly fast. I will say it broke down a lot, and that was before cell phones. And I walked along a dark highway several times. I know. So I didn't do anything bad in it, but I had a Pontiac Grand Am.
Okay.
I will say that you know what I did? I packed like 97 girls from dance class in it to go get Slurpees.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we did not obey maximum occupancy rules.
yeah. So I was
Back in the day.
stupid like that.
Yeah.
But
Sam?
Just want to know what my first car was?
Yes, I was about to.
It was a 2-door Toyota Yaris hatchback.
I remember the Yaris.
Yeah, I had it for 10 years. It lasted me a long time. My dad bought it for me because he didn't want me to have any boys in the back seat. Joke's on you, Papa!
it worked.
It worked.
It super worked.
No men have been in that back seat.
I think I could have like sat in the back seat of the Yaris and driven the car.
And driven the
It's
car.
like it was so small.
Do they make the Yaris still?
No.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But yeah,
That's funny. Oh, it's a good way to end.
that's a good way to end.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on Laugh Lines. As you know, I can't finish the credits without messing up. We've tried 7 or 8 times and I keep failing miserably. So we've brought Dr. Lisa Damour back in because number one, she has the most buttery, soft, amazing voice of all time that gives me ASMR every time I hear it. And number two, I feel like she could do this without messing up. So no pressure. But Dr. Lisa, take us home.
Okay, that's a lot of pressure. All right, here we go. Laugh Lines is written and produced by Kim Holderness, Penn Holderness, and Anne-Marie Tapke, with original music by Penn Holderness. It is filmed, edited, and live produced by Sam Allen and hosted by Acast. As always, we love to hear from you. Please write to us at podcast@theholdernessfamily.com or leave a voicemail at 323-364-3929. And we will talk to you soon on the Laugh Line.
I think that's going to be it for the rest of it.
She's so
We're
much
just going
better.
to cut and paste that for the
Just for some reason.
at every podcast. You'd be like, and now Dr. Lisa Damour reads our credits.
Yeah. Bye.